If you're a fan of Major League Baseball, when you wake up on opening day, you might not be exactly optimistic about your team's chances.
Bob, not sell the team, please.
There are some teams no matter what they can do, they're never going to be World Series contenders.
It's capitalism, right? It kind of stinks for the smaller market teams.
The league even acknowledges this idea on their website. Ultimately, the game is about hope and competition. Too many fans and markets across the game have too little hope that their team has a fair chance to win. Hope and competition are words that the league throws around a lot. But for baseball fans, it often feels like those principles aren't really what's motivating most team owners.
How would you grade your owner?
I think he's horrible. He don't care about the city. He cares about how much money he's putting in his back pocket.
There's a narrative that this competitive balance issue is the fault of a few big spenders, like the LA Dodgers, who have a payroll that exceeds the 6th lowest teams combined. But that's not the whole story. There are also a number of owners who are quietly banking their share of the league's money instead of spending it. Why? Because of the one word at the heart of the real MLB agenda. Not hope or competition, but profit.
They're lining their pockets instead of investing in players. Why can't they invest in their team?
These owners need to put their fan base in a better position to win. And they can do it, but they choose not to.
Sell the team. Does it feel like they don't think they can win? And so why spend the extra dollar? Or is it we think we can win by doing it a little bit differently?
So, how exactly are MLB owners winning by losing? We investigated the playbook by talking to fans, former players, and by opening up the books and crunching some numbers. Right now, there's a war being waged over the future of baseball. Despite record profits and an increase in popularity, fans are staring down the prospect of a potential lockout when the collective bargaining agreement expires on December 1st. That means there's a real risk of missing games for the first time since 1994, when the labor fight canceled the playoffs. It took a federal court ruling to get both sides back to the table, and some fans swore off the sport for years.
Unfortunately, the parties have not reached agreement. The American people are the real losers.
I was born in 1980, oh yes, the 94 strike broke my heart, it was never the same day.
My name is Bobby Wagner. Together with my co-host Alex Bazeley, I host the baseball podcast Tipping Pitches. For nearly 10 years, we've been covering the culture, economics, and labor relations of Major League Baseball. This is our third time covering a CBA battle, but this one feels different.
But don't just take my word for it. Here's Colin McHugh, an 11-year MLB veteran with a World Series ring.
It hurts like preemptively to hear them saying that the owners are going to lock players out if we can't come to an agreement.
And the reason why is because the business model of Major League Baseball is fundamentally different than it used to be. For most of baseball history, teams needed to win to make a profit. Winning sold more tickets, food, and beer. For example, let's take a look at the history of the New York Yankees and their iconoclastic owner, George Steinbrenner.
The Steinbrenners are actually a great example because George Steinbrenner, made his money in shipbuilding, bought the team, and turned it into a $1 billion team by the time he was done. But the way that they made money involved putting an attractive product on the field. And when they won more, they made more money.
The only thing I care about is Yankee fans. I could care less what the other people or the detractors say. It really doesn't bother me.
To put it lightly, other teams and fans didn't like this win-at-all-cost attitude. They didn't call them the evil empire for nothing. According to owners, under this old model, it was nearly impossible for so-called small market teams to compete with the financial might of the New York Yankees and LA Dodgers. So the business of owning a baseball team changed at the same time that the entire economy started changing.
The biggest change in American economics in my lifetime is that every company thinks it's a bank now. It's all financialization. Toys R Us makes its money by selling toys. And once the people who own Toys R Us start making their money by borrowing money against the assets of Toys R Us, those people get rich, Toys R Us goes out of business. And most baseball teams are run the same way.
When Baumann says it's all financialization, he's talking about the growing disparity between the revenue drivers MLB used to rely on, like selling tickets, hot dogs, and beer, and the revenue drivers they rely on now. This gap is particularly egregious for small market teams, who rely very little on the money they earn by selling tickets to their stadium. Under this new model, there are 3 key annual revenue streams for small market MLB owners. Television, in the form of selling national and local TV rights. Revenue sharing, the subsidization where lower earning teams get payments from the big fish. And gate receipts, things like tickets, and concessions. Here, let me show you. Local TV revenue is the single biggest differentiator in what small market and big market teams rake in every year. The Dodgers earn as much as $330 million annually. That's 33 of these baseballs for $10 million each. The lowest earning teams, like the Marlins, make less than $50 million. But all 30 teams receive an equal share of the $2 billion national TV rights package, which pays, on average, $70 million per team. In an effort to keep smaller clubs competitive and, more importantly, profitable, MLB teams pay about 48% of their local revenue, including local TV earnings, ticket sales, and related baseball earnings, into one big pool. MLB then distributes that money equally among all 30 clubs. Big market teams are considered revenue-sharing payers, while small market teams are considered revenue-sharing receivers. MLB also penalizes big spenders directly. Teams that exceed a certain payroll threshold pay a competitive balance tax. That money too gets funneled back to small market teams. With 2 of 3 revenue streams guaranteed regardless of performance, winning baseball games stopped being the point.
Artie Moreno, the owner of the Angels, literally said this out loud, that winning was not a top 5 priority for fans. To me, that is so instructive, right? Like, winning is not a priority because he does not need to win. Would he like to win? Absolutely. It's better than losing. Is he doing the things he needs to win at all costs? Absolutely not.
And of course, it's not just the Angels. Though revenue sharing payments are not publicly reported, November 2025 reporting by Ken Rosenthal and Evan Drellick in The Athletic cited the Marlins as receiving as much as $70 million in revenue sharing in 2025, if not more. That would mean that combined with their share of the national TV earnings, before a single Marlins player threw a pitch or swung a bat in 2025, the team was guaranteed about $140 million in revenue. Their payroll for players in 2025 was just $85 million. That's the lowest in baseball. According to the Sun Sentinel, Marlins owner Bruce Sherman is worth $3 billion. In their history in one of the largest markets in the country, the Marlins have reached the postseason 4 times. Of the 30 MLB teams, they currently rank 29th in attendance, and not too far ahead of them at 26th are the Pittsburgh Pirates. For multiple seasons over the last 20 years, owner Bob Nutting and the Pittsburgh Pirates have spent less on their payroll than they've made in tickets and concessions alone. They haven't reached the postseason in a decade.
Bob Nutting, he's making money hand over fist. Why should I spend $10, $15 million on somebody if I could put that $10, $15 million in my back pocket?
Yeah. According to Bob Nightingale of USA Today Sports, the Pirates routinely make a profit more comparable to the premier teams in baseball than their small market counterparts. Favorable revenue deals aside, the institutional benefits of owning an MLB team stretch far beyond the field. Owners also take advantage of specialized tax loopholes and frequently demand and receive public funding for new stadiums to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. So, with all these mechanisms in place, what are owners really after? Certainty.
Last fall, for the first time in 90 years, there was no World Series.
Remember that nasty lockout in 1994 we mentioned? There was one key issue at the root of it, MLB's proposal of a salary cap. It's an idea that's extremely divisive, even among fans.
I absolutely support the salary cap. I circled it like 15 times.
No salary cap in baseball, ever.
100% support a salary cap and a salary floor.
I'm a baseball fan, and I believe there should be no salary cap.
I am a Tampa Bay Rays fan, and I say no to the salary cap.
I do support salary cap.
If you're not familiar, a salary cap is a mechanism in professional sports that fixes player wages underneath a certain agreed upon figure. Within a cap system, teams are forbidden from spending over a certain amount of money on player salaries. Meanwhile, each player is typically limited to a maximum contract. Baseball is the only major American sport without a salary cap, and has existed for over 120 years without one. Owners have dreamt about a salary cap system for decades, and the reason is pretty simple. MLB owners would like to know the exact amount of money they are liable to have to pay players year over year. For owners, this certainty around payroll would free them from the economic anxiety that comes with owning one of the, we'll call it, lower revenue ball clubs.
The story of Moneyball, it's the story of figuring out how to pay your employees less than they're worth. And that is sort of the name of the game in professional sports, certainly in the sports that have a salary cap.
Now, what is this whole small market playbook actually in service of? The market. Specifically, a team sale price, a number that players, employees, and fans don't stand to benefit from.
It is important to talk about franchise values. Where are we? Why are we where we are? And what can we do to fix our situation? We think we have a plan that, ultimately could produce real change and unlock significant franchise value.
I think that where we're at in a free market system has worked and has made baseball better. I think players have been able to stay in one place longer than any other sport. We have the ability, if a guy wants to keep a guy at home for $500 million, you can go out and pay that. In the NFL, you still get all of these Patriots Super Bowls. You still get 4 Chiefs Super Bowls. If this really was the magic bullet, then you would have seen it play out that way.
Franchise values are not a piece of the puzzle. They are the final picture. All those mechanisms aren't in place for making teams more competitive. It's to make them more valuable. Here are the last 5 MLB teams to sell and the appreciation of the franchise since the last time they were on the market. The Padres went from $800 million in 2012 to $3.9 billion this year. The Mets went from $391 million in 2002 to $2.4 billion in 2020. The Marlins went from $159 million in 2002 to $1.2 billion in 2017. The Orioles went from $173 million in 1994 to $1.7 billion in 2024. And finally, the Royals went from $96 million in 2000 to $1 billion in 2019. Only one of those 5 teams has won a World Series in the last 20 years, the Royals. With these paydays, it's no wonder billionaires line up every single time a team is for sale. Remember what MLB said fans deserve? Hope and competition. Take a look at the numbers and there's another story. Owners get richer no matter who wins.
We owe it to the fans as a service to put the best team out there we possibly can. Players work their tails off every day to try and do that on an individual level, and I think we all as players just want to see that reciprocated on the corporate level.
So, this CBA cycle, when owners fight for a salary cap, ask yourself what they're really protecting. It isn't competition, and it isn't the fans who are stuck just hoping to see baseball next year.
It would be a historic loss. I will never sugarcoat that. Players do not want to miss games. Players we play this game, number one, because it's usually the thing that we've been wanting to do for our entire lives since the day we picked up a baseball.
If there is a work stoppage, it's going to be a long one. And that's not good for baseball. It's not good for sports.
I do think that if we miss a season, people will not come back right away. They just won't.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. If you want to support our journalism so we can create more videos like this one, join our membership program to get exclusive perks and members-only content. And if you have a tip, email us at stories@perfectunion.us.